Hey guys, Sasa here. In today's game of Highgrounds, I will be playing Kitsune, a fox deck that abuses the Transform ability against skeleton Reanimator. Transform reads that the unit is replaced with the next unit in my army costing X resources or less, with the X in Pyrus' case being 10. Transform, as I have mentioned before in my Blood Fox video, is not completely random. If you have drawn every unit in your army, and before you reshuffle, Transform target is determined by the order of your units in the deck creation screen, the screen I am on right now. With that out of the way, let's look at my units. Some of you may have noticed that the first 3 units that I have on the screen, 2 spikes, and an era, cost more than Pyrus' Transform. The first unit that Pyrus can actually transform into in my army is Drion, the Thief Brawler. I cheat out these expensive units with my commander, Kitsune. With 18 transform in the back row, and 1 wound with 1 arrow in the front row, the 7 wood I spend purchasing my commander cheats out my 15 cost in-game units. For my economy, I opted to run only a single slog and 2 dugs. My deck doesn't require a lot of economy units since the units I need to purchase are all cheap. The bulk of my deck's average cost is found in the units I transform into. For my foxes, I opted to run a single Pyrus and 2 Flits, and 2 Ozzles. I also run a single Roko for early healing should I need it before I get my era. With the deck tech out of the way, let's head into the game. The unit I opened up with is a single Ozzle, which is an awful opening hand for my deck since it can't produce any wood. Highgrounds has a mechanic where you are guaranteed to draw 1 unit that your city can produce in your opening hands. While this does allow for economies to be relatively consistent, it puts a massive strain on 0, 1, and 2 cost units to either be economy units, be aggressive units, be brokenly overpowered, or almost never see play. Looking at my opponent, he runs the Crystal Camp City and opens up with the Marauds. I have no clue what my opponent is running at this time. Crystal Camp decks are usually Raiders, so that the opponent can cheese a guaranteed steal on turn 1 with Gauge, but Raiders don't use Marauds. My opponent skips his turn 2, and I skyrocket ahead. On turn 3, he might as well have skipped it, as the only thing he does is place a single Pep, which is not an economy unit. With 14 units in my deck, 4 recruits, and 6 units on the field whenever I reshuffle, I had guaranteed a draw on my commander, and a transform into Spike next turn. Kitsune slows down my opponent even more than he already has been due to an arrow wounding Pep and a wound hitting in economy units. I set up my units in such a way that I guarantee a draw into both Spike and Drion. With Spike having 4 wounds and Drion having 3 knockout, I effectively lock my opponent off of the front row until he is further developed, which gives me plenty of time to whittle up my opponent's health with my foxes, and start generating the last of my in-game units. My opponent, on the other side, manages to draw another economy unit, but he is still significantly far behind on tempo. My opponent reveals Ronnie as a healer, but still has not shown any units that would give an indication of what deck he is playing. Furthermore, he has only played crystal units, minus for the single Geost economy units, so I don't even know what my opponent splashed gold for at this point in the game. Regardless, I transform into my second Spike and purchase a Pyrus for his Foxpack ability. Foxpack triggers for both adjacent foxes and for adjacent thieves, so Drion, the Thief Brawler, pulls double duty in my army by buffing my front row damage. Expecting my opponent to lose based on tempo alone, I push my units to the front row and prepare to end the game. I honestly did not expect an Ezek to come out for my opponents, nor did I expect the Skeleton Commander which had followed suit. I know that Reanimators are the most powerful deck in Highgrounds, but they aren't exactly a color splashable deck. More so for the Drummonds that I snipe in the back row, which is the only gold unit I have seen from my opponent this entire game. Since Reanimators, as I have mentioned before, are inherently weak to mass wound effects, since Ezek, a frail unit, requires to be adjacent to multiple units at a time, making their front row predictable, I am the favorite to win this game due to my double spike and Drion combo. Even while I do mass wound my opponent, I manage to miss this Ezek. I do manage to knock out Ronnie, who is the primary defender for my opponents. While my deck isn't particularly fast, it does do well in long games due to the constant wound and knockout spam setting my opponents back in tempo. I still have plenty of health to spare, so I can safely spend a few turns playing hide and seek with my opponent and his Ezek. I keep moving my wounders around to try to hit Ezek, but I still miss him this turn. My opponent is on a clock, however, and knows that he can't stall behind defenders forever. I will eventually beat him through damage. Unfortunately for my opponent, even though he did tech for wound decks with his Ronnie, he doesn't run any copies of Solve in his deck to reanimate his skeleton with defense. I managed to wound everybody but his Drummond on the front row, and managed to hit his commander with an arrow from my commander. While I don't necessarily win this turn, my opponent is too far behind in tempo to catch up, and the game ends on the next turn. If you enjoyed this game and would like to play it for yourself, you may do so by following the link in the description. Highgrounds is a free-to-play browser game that is easy to get into due to its low learning curve and daily free units. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to check out my channel. Until next time, have a good day.